Hello and welcome back to Exceptional Explorers YouTube channel. My name is Marina and I'm an occupational therapist, and if you've seen some of our videos before, you've seen that we like to give you developmental tidbits to maybe possibly help you along the way with your kiddos. If you saw a previous video of mine about sensory regulation, I spoke a lot about the fact that if you have an dysregulated or overwhelmed or stressed out child, you're really not going to get any motor output from them that's meaningful, right? We can't expect function if the child's sensory needs are not met, right? And I'm sure you see that in your own kids, right? When they're having a bad day or they're having a tantrum, you're not going to get them to sit down and do a tabletop art activity for you. It's just not going to happen. So you really can't have one without the other. So assuming that your child is nice and calm and regulated, it's one of those perfect scenarios that don't always happen, but let's say they are. A lot of parents want to know, how do I help nurture their development? And one thing that I find is that we talk a lot about gross motor development, like running and jumping, and that's what we see most of in their first few years of life, right? They start rolling, then they start walking, then they start jumping, then they start running, and the next thing you know, they're 3 and 3.5, and they're in like a preschool program, and the teacher is saying, okay, well, we need to work on their fine motor skills, and they're like, well, I haven't really thought about that much because they just haven't had no interest in anything small and working with their hands, right? They're on the go, they want to run around, they want to go to the park and climb, they want to jump off the couch, right? So all of a sudden it comes up out of nowhere where we have to start thinking about their ability to really use their hands. And it almost feels like, well, was I supposed to be doing something all this time? And the answer is yes and no. Most likely, whatever you've been doing in your home is already wonderful, right? Parents nurture their children's development all the time, right? You don't need to be a therapist. You just need to love your kid. And usually parents provide enough opportunity for children to learn important skills that will help them with their fine motor skills in the future. So if we look at our hand, right, our hands are very functional, right? We use them for everything, and they really are like the reason why we've evolved, and all the tools that we have and all the inventions that we have is because our hands are just so amazing and are an amazing tool. So if you look at your hand, right, you have the power side of your hand, like the stability side, which is this side of your hand, right? We call that the ulnar side. And then you have your fine motor side of your hand, right, which is called the radial side of your hand. And if you think about this position, right, think about functional tasks like writing, right? We usually keep this kind of tucked in if you want a nice grasp, right? Or when we cut, right, we're usually using these two scissors, right? Or if we are trying to tweeze something out of somewhere, right, we're using these two fingers, right? So this part of our hand is really important, but not just this part of our hand. It's the ability to dissociate our 5 fingers. Finger dissociation is extremely important because if your hand works as one unit, you lose all of your dexterity, right? If our fingers couldn't do independent things, we wouldn't be nearly as evolved as we are, right? So we need our hands, we need our fingers to work independently of each other. And we can facilitate that in our kids. And it's not always easy, but that really helps with fine motor skills. And really, it starts off very, very young with pointing, right? We're just using one finger, right? I want this, I want that. It's communication, right? It's very early communication. Children who are not able to speak when they're very young are very often able to point this, that, and parents say, okay, you want this or you want that, right? So if you have a very young child on your hands, pointing is a very, very important first step, okay? Now, if they are able to point, right, pushing buttons, that is a fine motor task, right? And really, I'm going to go back to the sensory piece, right? When they're really, really little, like I'm talking like, a year and up, right? They really are exploring their surroundings, right? And they need the sensory input. So really all of your fine motor tasks are going to be married to a sensory task. So that might mean, you know, taking them to the beach and letting them explore and find things in a little bucket of sand, right? That definitely facilitates fine motor skills. Popping bubbles, right, as they're getting on to be 18, 19, 20 months. If you're at a Gymboree class or anywhere, if you're popping bubbles, right? If you're, you know, looking for something even more educational, right? If you're doing like a shaving cream task, which I really love, you could put the shaving cream in a Ziploc bag and you're finding beads, right? Those are all excellent fine motor tasks that really, really facilitate further fine motor development, right? Don't forget about household objects like candles, right? Obviously, they're not going to be lit, but if you have Play-Doh at home, Play-Doh is a wonderful, wonderful tool to facilitate strength in the hands. It really works on the intrinsic muscles in the hand. And if the kids are manipulating the Play-Doh and then you're sticking pieces of candles in there, all of a sudden you have a little birthday cake or a cupcake, and then they can blow out the candles, working their oral motor. Blow out the candles with mommy. It's a great project. They feel really accomplished. If you have pipe cleaners at home, which I think, you know, those little fuzzy long sticks, you can bend them any which way into making hearts and shapes and circles, but really you could stick them into Play-Doh as well, right? And then that really you're pushing, right? And then that's your sensory piece and also your fine motor piece. Another fine motor activity that I really like as your infant toddler gets older is stringing beads. So if you can get these kits anywhere, Amazon. But if you have a bead with a hole in it and a string, right? You're trying to get the string into the hole, and then you have to switch hands to pull, right? You're using both hands simultaneously. You're using different parts of the fingers, different parts of the hand to pull, to transfer, to push. You're using a visual motor component where you're trying to see if you can thread that string through that hole. It's a really, really wonderful activity. Pasta necklaces, same idea. If you don't want to purchase, you know, a bead, it really is the same idea. They're nice and thick. You can get different pastas. Same exact scales and same exact concepts. You can even paint the pasta. Painting is a wonderful activity for really little kids, as little as a year old, if they're sitting up, and you know, if you can get them to sit and not run away. But with the paintbrush or finger paint, right? As long as your child won't mouth the paint, which, you know, usually the paint is non-toxic, and that's obviously up to your discretion. But finger painting, right? Using the different fingers. Oh, let's do our fingerprints. Thumb, this, like where you do each finger. That also encourages finger dissociation. So, if you have any fine motor skills that you love to practice with your children, or tasks that you think are super, super fun that really work in your home, please let us know. We would love to hear it and share with the community. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next week, bye.